Welcome, everyone, to the B2B C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, we have a conversation that is going to blow your mind in a number of different ways. It's all about, is experience the king of B2B marketing? And that seems like something we talk about so much and seems to be almost a generic topic. But I have to tell you, this is going to be anything but a generic conversation. We have on Derek Weiss. Derek, you are the CMO of Katalon. You've actually written a book, Unfair Mindshare, which I want to selfishly plug for you. Do you have it on your table or anything that you could show us?
In fact, I have a copy right here. So Unfair Mindshare, it's the CMO's guide to community-led marketing in a product-led world. And happy to chat about that as part of our conversation as well, Steve.
So what Derek's going to give us is not going to replace the book, but the highlights of this community-led marketing. What does that really mean? That's a buzzword too, right? Communities, and we all know communities are good and it's building relationships. But Derek, you're going to take it about 5 levels deeper than that, which I really appreciate. So what I'd love to do, though, is maybe just give us 30, 45 seconds on your background before we get started.
Yeah. Well, Steve, thanks for having me on the podcast. I totally appreciate it. I have been in B2B marketing for the last 30 years in software companies, primarily around, topics like IT operations, software development, software testing. Currently the CMO at Katalon. We're a scale-up venture-backed entity, offices around the world. I manage a team of about 30 marketers here at Katalon as part of kind of the community effort. And one thing I'll talk about is we have a community of about 95,000 people. Mm-hmm. Now it grows a couple thousand every month. We engage those people. Prior to Katalon, I was the CMO at the Linux Foundation, where we also engage community in a lot of our go-to-market efforts. And prior to that, I was at a company called Sonatype in the DevOps and cybersecurity space, where along with a colleague and a couple of friends from the industry, we launched and grew a community from 0 to over 100,000 people as part of our go-to-market strategy. So exciting things, that are always happening in this space, and always looking to build and refine our craft and how we approach it.
All right, so I got to lead in and ask the number one question, because if everybody's doing what I was doing, is like drooling when I heard communities of 95,000, 100,000, yeah. Right? Sometimes B2B, our TAM isn't even that much, depending on our organization, right? So phenomenal achievement. Tell us, if you could, just start us out with, in your mind, what is the definition of a community, and why should we be thinking in new ways about how it's valuable to us?
Yeah, I think first of all, I'll say if you're in B2B marketing like I am, there are probably 2 types of communities that you could start with. One is a product community, which is what we have now at Katalon. You're using our product, whether it's a free product or paid version of it, and you want to engage with others to learn how to use the product better, or how to use the product better as part of the job that you have. As our audience is software testing professionals and quality assurance professionals. So I'm engaging with others to learn how to do that job better, but probably in the context of using our tool as part of the solution that you would have. There's another type of community, which is a community of interest. And that is a community that doesn't really need to talk about your product at all. In fact, it probably doesn't. So in this particular case, if I think about Katalon, where I am now, the world of software development, software testers or quality assurance professionals, what do they need? How do they work with other people? How do they work with development teams? How do you develop a testing center of excellence? All things that these professionals are concerned about, that help them in their career, that help them become better at their profession, that has often nothing to do with a tool or whatever a vendor might be pitching, but you help people become better at their craft. I think at the core of all communities, they start with, am I being helpful to this particular audience? Community is not about going out and pitching or promoting. it starts with the mandate of let's be helpful to people. And the more helpful we are, the more others that those people will engage, and they'll invite others to engage as well.
So this idea of building these communities and being helpful, like these communities of interest you're talking about
Yeah.
right here. I mean, that's what we try to do as B2B marketers and sellers is we try to be relevant. We try to be valuable. Like we try to help our ICP, right? And
Yeah.
it's not always just about us. It's about their challenges. It's about everything that's important to
Yeah.
them for their success. We struggle with that. I mean, there was an article recently written in Forbes that they said B2B content marketing receives a D minus. And that was based on a survey of B2B buyers, right? And that's what we're trying to do. Like we're trying to add value, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
yeah.
The funny thing about this, and why I think it's so inherently challenging for some marketing teams to adopt, is when I talk about being helpful, there's a quote that I have in my book that I think I adapted from someone else that said it, but it goes something like community marketing. Uh, it, if you think about the value of community marketing, think of a first date. If all you do is talk about yourself on the first date, there's probably not going to be a second date, right? And part of this is if you think about most B2B marketing, I'm in charge of marketing or promoting my company and our products so that we can generate revenue and stay in business,
Right.
right? So most, if you're in a CMO role or any other marketing role and you ask the CEO or the board, well, why did you hire that chief marketing officer? Well, we need someone to promote our company and promote our product. And if I say, in order to do that and achieve that the best way I can, I am going to talk about our company and our product, but I'm also going to spend time not talking about us. In
Right.
fact, I'm going to go out and help people that are in our market and in our community and build a relationship with them and build trust and help them become better at their careers. Right. And with that, we'll build brand, brand awareness, we'll build brand affiliation, and brand trust that will then lead in the longer run to product revenue and company revenue overall. If you go out and tell a CEO or a board, I'm going to spend some part of my time not talking about us and our products. It's like, wait, what did I hire you for? So it conflicts with the very nature of what people believe is marketing. But marketing in a lot of ways, the more you help people, the more marketing feels like a connection versus a transaction.
Yes.
The more you're going to bring people in to say, these are the types of people I want to do business with. This is who I want to work with.
Yeah, it's, Edelman, I think, and LinkedIn came out with their like 60th annual thought leadership benchmark report. And thought leadership is all about what you're talking about in terms of you're not going to talk about you. You're going to talk about them, their challenges and what's going to make them successful. But here's an epiphany I think I had when I was listening to you talk there. I used to have a business. I ran a social media marketing university, and I had Facebook groups with thousands of people in them. And I remember when I started them, what dawned on me was, hang on a second. Having that community was the very first time that value didn't all have to come from me and the company, that the community supports and helps itself through you, right? Through your community. It was my Facebook group, right? But the community was what an important part of the success of that community was that they were helping themselves branded through my business, right?
Yeah.
And I remember just like doing backflips and belly flops because I was like, this is fantastic, right? They're getting
Yeah.
so much value that I don't actually have to have this big budget for and different things. Is there anything in that? Like,
Yeah.
what's your
Oh,
reaction?
yeah. So let me bring like a really practical example. A couple companies back, I was in charge of both a product community at the company and a community of interest. So one community where we did talk about our product everyone in the community was a customer of ours, or they were about to become a customer. They wanted to learn the product. And we put together a user conference for that group. And we had about 1,500 people participate. So some years, like maybe 2,000, maybe 2,500 maximum.
Yeah.
There was the community of interest that we also supported through our efforts. And in that community of interest, we did a couple of things. We made it completely accessible. So it was online. This was back in 2016. We made it educational. So it was purely like, how do we help people in this profession become better at that profession?
Yeah.
The third is we invited the community to generate all the lessons or shared information in this community. We were not creating the community ourselves. We were creating the forum for the community to gather.
Yes.
And we, as part of that, we promised the community, you can come here to learn and it will be free and there will be no vendor pitches as part of that. And we kept that promise for the 6 years that I ran it along with other colleagues and people from the community. We hosted an online conference. That conference had 30 to 40,000 people a year participate in it.
Wow. Wow.
The conference had 180 speakers over 24 hours. And those 180 speakers delivered and built 180 pieces of content for the community in 24 hours. It was all them. We provided the forum. They said, I have something to talk about. Steve, I think you and others that you work with will find interesting. Let me come and share what I know about this practice or this profession or what we're doing. And if I share that, I can be helpful with you. And that encouraged other people to share as well. And, you know, in addition to the conference, we had blogs, we had various forums, we did some live things in various communities around the world. But that community of practice was over 10 times larger than the product community that I had. And they both cost about the same to operate. The community of interest didn't cost that much because the forum doesn't cost that much to create. The content, if we had to create 180 pieces of content ourselves, that would cost an enormous sum of money. But we had the community generate the content to help others in the community. And that generated lots of value and lots of attention and lots of engagement that we then, you know, we were able to further leverage in our business to continue to grow our brand and also drive revenue.
You know, it's crowdsourcing content. You know, I mean, that's what I kept thinking, right? You know, and we have big budgets for content, right? Content marketing is a huge opportunity and area for every B2B business to grow. So, you know, the idea of creating some of the best content because it's of the peer community for the peer community, right? So it's content.
Today, like I'll give you a really practical example of something that's fairly simple we do at Katalon. So we have a product community. As I mentioned, 95,000 people are in this product community. We have a discourse discussion forum where we get about 80,000 visits a week, which the numbers are huge.
Right.
But every week, someone comes into the community and has a question. I'm trying to do this with this product. How do I do it? Someone from our company chimes in, someone from the community chimes in, and they offer solutions. Sometimes they share bits of code. Sometimes they say, well, you need to integrate that thing with this, and here's where I found the integration or whatever you can do. And they have this discussion, and it builds a discussion thread in discourse. We have a content team that takes that discussion, copies the whole thing, goes to ChatGPT and says, can you create a blog on this discussion thread between these people? And so it takes it out of a forum, creates a piece of content, and here's why it works. How relevant is the piece of content that we just created? Super relevant. Literally, people were talking about it this week.
Right.
Did we generate the idea for that content? No, the community, someone in the community came and asked a question and others discussed it. And we're simply summarizing that discussion in a blog. We know it's very relevant, it's very current, it's very topical for these professionals, but we crafted it in a new form that than it took in the discourse forum, in a more readable one. So when people come to our company blog, they're like, hey, what's new at Katalon? There's like, oh, this seems like a really relevant discussion to things that I have as a professional. Well, that's because we know the community helped build the original piece of content and the original participation. And we're echoing that and giving credit to the people in the community like, hey, Bob and Mary and Joe had this discussion and here's what it is and here's what it entailed. And they had a problem and this is the solution that they reached. That's super helpful, right? And a way that a product community can leverage user-generated content in a couple of different ways to engage the audiences.
It's mind-blowing. Staying relevant with our content is such a big task, and staying on top of what is current in the questions in the mind. I mean, I think a company that probably did this best was HubSpot. They literally created content like, we're just going to answer every question that our audience has.
Yeah.
They were a CRM to start out with. There's so much more now, but it wasn't all CRM related questions, right? It was marketing questions, like how to be a good marketer. Like, what does it take? They just started answering topical questions, and that's what I'm taking away. That's what's coming out of this community. So what are the most important questions to your community that they have? And they're
Right.
bubbling up right in front of you.
And I, just like you, for many years, even still today, I will look into like, how do I do this kind of thing? And a HubSpot blog will come up as one of the search results.
Absolutely.
Here's how you do it. HubSpot wrote about that. HubSpot probably has 4 or 5 blogs on that particular topic. And they were being so helpful to the community. And those blogs were not like, and by the way, the only way you can achieve this is to use HubSpot. To your blogs. It was just like, no, this is how you do it. Let me be helpful to the audience that we serve. And through that, you generate that brand affinity.
Yes.
That says, yeah, this is why I'm investing in HubSpot today, why I continue to invest in it. Because even my team, we recently transitioned from a different CMS into HubSpot after I came in as CMO. And part of that, when the team said, well, how do we learn about this? I said, that's the great thing about HubSpot. They've got such a great community. They have such great content that you can leverage. They're so helpful.
Yes.
It's going to be easy to learn the things that you don't know because it's extremely well documented. And so we leverage lessons like that, in what we do on a daily basis at Katalon, but what I've done for years as well. With communities and the value of them.
If there was a way that, like, this is an overall experience with your brand that most brands don't have, right?
Yeah.
And, McKinsey and Company came out with a study last year, and they looked at the most profitable growing companies that had the greatest return on shareholder equity and what was common. And the differentiator that those companies had in the marketplace was CX, was customer experience, was their number one differentiator. And your point of view is that experience is a differentiator.
Yeah.
And you've got a very, very cool, very specific way that you're thinking about experience here. Why do you think it's such an important differentiator?
Well, here's the thing. I was just meeting with one of our customers. They happen to be the second largest elevator manufacturing company in the world. Went to them, visited their headquarters last week, and we were talking about, among other things, the community and part of like what value does it bring to them. So one, they decided to purchase our products, but purchasing products is just one step of many steps in a customer journey and their experience. So after, they get all the promises from the sales teams of this is going to be great and this has the capabilities that you need, and you buy it, you need to implement it. And when you implement it, you're going to have questions about, how do I get this to work? how do I take advantage of this feature? How do I get my teams educated on using this particular technology? In our community at Katalon, we offer free training and free certification to anyone in the world, whether it's on our free products or our paid products. But this is part of the engagement. Come here and let us help you on your journey to be more successful. And by saying, like, I've had, in addition to that conversation, I've had discussions with other companies that said we knew we weren't going to get up to speed as well as we could if we didn't have training available to our employees. And you guys made it instantly available. And part of even what we put on our website is from day one, you're never alone. And that is
Mhm.
not a promise by just Katalon saying, hey, we're going to be with you the whole way, like every other vendor that sells to you
Right.
is going to be with you the whole way. We really mean it from, look, we're with you, but we have this community of 95,000 people that are also with you. And they have shared experiences that they're going to be able to offer. So when you run into hiccups, which you always will with various technologies, or integrating those technologies with your processes, or getting your people to be able to understand those technologies better. And that trifecta of the people, process, technology working together is always, always has some challenges associated with it. Having a place that you can go to and a forum that you can interact with is a very enduring competitive advantage,
Yes.
because my
Yes.
competitors can't be out there offering, well, we have a gigantic community too. No, they don't. They didn't invest up front for the years that it took to say, what do people need? What are they looking for? What would make their experience with this thing better? And we decided very early on at the beginning of the company, we're going to build something that has enduring value for the people that we're interacting with. And as such, it's continued to be a competitive differentiator for the business because we have that. Even if our competitors see, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm, one of our competitors, we just got $30 million in funding. So now we're going to build a community. Like, good, go and start that today and put some of your, new investment, to work. It's going to take you years to try and replicate the thing that we already have
Right.
that is, growing at, significant levels every month. As I said, we're getting thousands of people in. So it doesn't say that if you're a big company, you can't start, but I think you have to look at the investment in the community side as more of a longer term investment in terms of how it pays off, because most communities don't go from 0 to 95,000 in a year. Now,
Yeah.
in the past, part of what I share in the book is in 90 days when I started the all day DevOps community with a colleague of mine, we went and 5 friends from the industry. We went from 0 to 13,000 in 90 days. So we did that by being super helpful and being very authentic and relying on the community to really engage and who wanted to learn. Uh, but that was a little more of the anomaly to community building than, I would say, a more natural path. It's probably a slower growth, formation, especially in the very beginning months.
I think very, very few of us have thought about the benefits of community beyond kind of building relations, staying in touch, but taking it all the way through to a significant competitive advantage. It's going to help us close deals, right? So
Yeah.
I think in our previous conversation, you're like, hey, if you're looking at a company that's similar to ours in terms of our technology, our products,
Yeah.
this is a big tipping point, right? This is
Yeah.
something that really can tip the deal into our favor.
Yeah. And a lot of, markets are any market that anyone listening to this in, it is a really crowded, noisy market. You have a
Yes.
lot of competitors, a lot of different offerings. And if you're out there going product versus product, it's really hard to differentiate yourself. So as a marketer, you have to look at, we have a product, we have price, we have partners, we have technology partners that integrate with this, we have community, right? What is the ecosystem of value that we're offering to someone? Community is one component of that, but it can be a really strong differentiator when you're trying to cut through the noise in crowded markets, right? And it's such a, when done right, it's such an authentic thing that people will want to engage in it and come back, because you're not in a community trying to just promote and sell and promote and sell. There are other forums in marketing and sales for that, but the community is more, how can I help? How can we help? Right. And that has a lot of enduring value to it.
I want to make sure we have time to talk about one of the things that you think is a completely separate benefit coming out of communities, and that is the data that you can get out
Yeah.
of communities. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that. We've been so intoxicated by all the other benefits that we
Yeah.
haven't even touched on
Yeah.
this yet.
So a lot of, when you look externally, the external value of communities for a business, right? How are we engaging with the market, or engaging with our customers, or engaging
Yeah.
with our users? That's one level of value. Internally, it can be a lot of value gained by the data behind a community. So imagine you're sitting in my seat, and you have a community of 95,000 people around the world that's
Yeah.
growing at a couple thousand a month. Or take a smaller size community of a couple thousand people, and you can do the same thing. One of the key things that you're asked in marketing is, who is your ICP, and what do you know about that ideal customer, profile, right? I have a database of 95,000 people. I know where they live. I know where they work. I know what they do for a living. I know what their titles are. I know what countries they're in, the companies they work for, the size of companies that they work for, right? I know all of this information. I can look at the trends of that community over time and say, oh my gosh, the community in Germany is triple the size that it was last year. The community in Argentina has stayed flat for this year. The community in some other, country is declining for whatever reason. But if I'm looking at what market might I want to engage in next, where might we want to partner with someone? Where might we want to hire a sales rep? If I see Germany is tripling its size of engagement, maybe this actually leads to me making the case for more investment there. It allows our marketers to know a lot more about the group that we're going after, whether it's a product community or community of interest. That data is really important. Now, let's take it an even step further. One is just like looking at the community that you have and what you can tell about it. In the past, when I was running this 100,000 person community, we would go out and create a state of the industry survey report. And we'd send an email to 100,000 people and say, we're running a survey that we want to see what's happening in the industry. 1 in 20 people participate in that survey, which means I have a survey that 5,000 people have responded to. Right. Once I produce the survey report from my company and others that we had in the community that were also supporting the survey and the creation of it as a community survey report, we're seen as thought leaders. I can take that piece of content and generate a lot of interest in the market from, hey, do you want to hear what's happening? I can attract a big audience from that. I can take the report and the survey findings and go and present on stage at some pretty big conferences to say, do you want to know the state of things in this industry? Well, we now know through the data in this survey what's going on. Now, that's externally in a way to use it, but I can also look at those survey results and say, what more is this telling me about our ICP?
Yeah.
when the survey asked, what are your top priority technologies that you invest in? And you list 10 and your company's happens to be number 8, right? How many people answered that that was a top priority, or maybe it's their 5th priority? And if it is, then when you go to enable your salespeople and you say, look, if you're looking for an ideal customer, they better have invested in these 4 things first before they get to our 5th, because this is the state of the market. So you can use data from something like that for thought leadership externally. You can also use data from something like that internally as part of educate your go-to-market path, educate your sales team, better enable them, better target, like, what capabilities are people looking for in the market? What things are making it harder for those people to get to think about the thing that your company might be offering, right? So it doesn't have to be a product survey, but you can say, well, here are the pain points the industry is addressing. And their number one pain point, we don't talk about at all in our marketing. Maybe we should shift our marketing to talk about that number one pain point, right? The data behind the community is not just in the numbers in a community, but what can the community tell you about what's going on in your industry? That when you build a trusted relationship with this group, they're willing to tell you things that you might not get if you just hired someone to say, go out and email 100,000 people I don't know, and hopefully get them to respond to a survey about from you, and they don't even know your brand of who you're reaching out to. It's harder to do, but the benefits of the data are tremendous, of tremendous value to a marketer.
I have a feeling that there's a whole book worth of content we could be going over here. So I encourage people to get the book. Here's what I want to do. I want to ask one last question, and that is, if there was one thing that you wanted people to take away from this podcast today, one thought, what would that be?
I think it is that authenticity is key to any really great marketing. And that is part of authenticity is you have to be very empathetic to your audience. Know who you're talking to. Go out and talk about the things that they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Be honest in your approach to doing that. Kind of going back to the quote about dating, like, if all you do about is talk about yourself, there won't be a second date. Well, part of that, like in marketing, if you're just promoting yourself, if you're just talking about yourself and just talking about your products, you're not going to be very interesting. You're not going to be very engaging because it's really a one-sided conversation. And I think authenticity really helps you break through in noisy markets. One of the discussions we had a while ago when we were doing the prep call for this discussion was around TikTok and like why it's so interesting, right? And a lot of the people that you and I might follow there and find interesting are just authentic storytellers. They're not trying to pitch stuff. In fact, when the pitches come along, you're like, no, sales pitch,
right.
past that. But someone's telling a story and engaging, and it might be like, wow, I went out and I was looking for something to write with, and I found this pen and it's really cool. And here's why, and they're not paying me, right? But like, I got this value out of this thing, right? This product, this service, whatever it might be. And it's more authentic because those people are sharing that experience. It's authentic. They're trying to help other people. And for that, they're creating a following through doing that. So you don't always have to be talking about yourself. Like, those influencers are rarely talking about themselves, but they're being helpful to others, and they're creating a lot of brand affinity and following through that. And I think in B2B marketing, we always look to B2C to say, what are they doing? What have they figured out that we can apply? And authenticity is a lot of that. And in fact, like, if you look at the TikTok examples, the reason we scroll past those, like someone's pitching something, is we immediately sense within a second, this person is not authentic.
Right.
They are trying to sell me something and I know it. Scroll past, right? It doesn't take you 10 or 12 seconds to figure that out.
No.
I mean, think about your scrolling behavior. It's like, nope, they're pitching, move on. That happens within a second for me, right? And there is a very large audience that wants you to be authentic and engaging. And I think that transforms how we think about B2B marketing.
Here's one thing I know what's going to happen for sure. There's going to be a lot of questions that people have. And so, hey, there's the book.
Yeah.
If people wanted to reach out directly to you, would it be appropriate that we give a link to your LinkedIn profile that people could reach out with questions?
Absolutely. I'm really easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm really active on LinkedIn. I post a couple of times a week on something, sometimes my company, sometimes on book, sometimes on just, here's something cool that I saw or learned from that I thought was super interesting. And I'll say, like, just direct message me on LinkedIn. You'd be surprised at how few people actually do that.
Yeah.
But also how responsive I am. And I know others, my friends are when they do that, someone saying, hey, I'm looking for help, or, I found something insightful, or I had a question. Don't be afraid to reach out to those people, because especially, I should say, on LinkedIn and us as marketers. LinkedIn, some days it's just filled with, hey, Steve, I saw your profile. We're marketers. Let's connect. There's like zero
Right.
value. And it's just like, Steve, you're
Yeah.
trying to sell me something. Like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want that. But when you find that kind of anomaly of Steve reached out and had a question like, hey, heard that podcast. I had a question, like, that was really interesting. Can I learn more about this? Or, let me hear a little more about that. It breaks through the noise of that platform where people are often pitching too much,
Yeah.
for wanting to reach out to you to sell something. So you'll get more responses than you think by just reaching out.
If your question is authentic, right? Back to your point on authenticity.
Yeah.
Her-
Yeah.
So, Derek, here's what I'd love to do. I'd love to probably have you back on the podcast, but right now I just want to say thank you for just expanding our minds on a community and all the ways that it can benefit us from not only the data, but just a competitive advantage, insights that drive our entire business. Our customers or ICP are the highest authority in our business. And you've just built this forum. It's just an incredible melting pot of information and benefits both ways. Right. So thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing all of this. And I would encourage everybody to go out and get an unfair competitive advantage, because that was an unfair
Unfair
mind
mind
share.
share. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Super. Well, Steve, it's a pleasure as always. And, I hope the audience enjoyed this. And, as we said, reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them there. And that's the easiest way to get a hold of me.